People like to twist that around. I know. They say, well, if you don't vote, you have no right to complain. But where's the logic in that? If you vote and you elect dishonest, incompetent people, and they get into office and screw everything up, well, you are responsible for what they have done. You caused the problem. You voted them in. You have no right to complain. I, on the other hand, who did not vote, who, in fact, did not even leave the house on election day, am in no way responsible for what these people have done and have every right to complain as loud as I want about the mess you created that I had nothing to do with.
Broadcasting from Brisbane, Australia, this is The FOMO Show.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Joe.
And this is a fortnightly podcast where we talk about the exciting ideas changing the world today and what might change the world tomorrow.
We'll help you stay across what's going on so you don't get the fear of missing out.
You can find us at FOMO.show or by searching for The FOMO Show on your platform of choice.
And as always, everything in the show is in the show notes. You can find links to stuff we're talking about and timestamps to the relevant parts, so you can always skip ahead or find it later.
So this episode, we will be celebrating 50 episodes.
50 episodes. Half century. Holy, it's been wild.
Yeah, it actually works out as 2 years since we started the podcast because we record fortnightly and somewhere along the line we've kind of skipped a couple of episodes.
Yeah.
Through different things. So yeah, mate, it's been 2 years.
2 years. Wow. And to think some of the wonderful people listening have actually been listening since episode 1.
Yeah, if you've been with us since episode 1, hats off to you. It's been a long and rocky road, but thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for believing with us. And look, if this is your first episode, welcome to.
It's a pleasure having you here, as always. So, yeah, thanks for joining. Wherever you are, in your car, on the way to work, sitting on the bus, vomiting on yourself after a big night out, welcome to the show.
Yep. We take anyone and everyone here. So we're going to essentially just look back on 50 episodes. We're going to talk about some of the predictions we made along the way, some things that have changed, what stayed the same, and just reflect on some of the highlights and the lowlights of 50 episodes of The FOMO Show.
Yeah, cool. Well, let's jump into our disclaimer. Firstly, this podcast is not investment or any other type of advice, but we say that you should probably buy Bitcoin. But simultaneously,
we're not saying you should buy anything at all.
So full disclosure, we're both personally invested in different shares, funds, cryptocurrencies, football teams, whatever it would be, some of which we talk about on the show.
Yeah, but if we talk about an investment product, it doesn't mean you should buy it. So do your research, never invest more than you can afford to lose, and most importantly, avoid the fear of missing out.
We are introducing a brand new resource for our listeners.
Yeah, so can you really be sure you're safe online? Do you want to know more about tools you can use to maximize your privacy? We're putting together a page. We've put together a page, actually, which you can find at FOMO.show/privacy. And it's got the best tools to help you check your privacy, stay protected online, and keep your cryptocurrency secure.
So, yeah, check it out, FOMO.show/privacy. Blockchain basics. If you're new around here and you have no idea what blockchain and cryptocurrency are, why not check out our blockchain basics series?
Yeah, it starts from episode 2 and continues on until episode 8, and it'll give you some grounding in the fundamentals and help you understand what on earth we're talking about. And it'll also give you a bit of a glimpse into some of the things we'll be talking about this episode, which is where the show came from, what we were like back in the first few episodes, and some of the things we talked about. So, yeah, you'll probably see some things we predicted and said that aren't very accurate, but you will get a good grounding in blockchain and Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and what that all means.
Yeah, awesome. Well, let's jump into the news. Now, the first piece of news, we would not have even expected to see a piece like this when we started the show. Coinbase have received a multi-billion-dollar crypto transfer from Grayscale.
Yeah, so one of the world's largest digital currency asset management firms plans to execute a transfer of billions of dollars worth of cryptocurrency. And that transfer would be one of the most significant single transfers ever witnessed in the crypto world.
So through the transfer, Grayscale Investments plans to move their underlying assets for their products to Coinbase, which is a crypto wallet provider and trading platform. Side note, if you're interested in getting involved in buying your first crypto, you can get it on Coinbase at FOMO.show/Coinbase, because that helps you and us if you use that link. But but in particular, the assets will be transferred to Coinbase Custody, which will serve as the custodian of the assets. And we first mentioned Coinbase Custody way back in episode 7 in, November of 2017.
Yeah, and it's become more and more topical as we've seen more and more hacks of people's crypto wallets and some theft of exchange coins. Custody is becoming a big deal, and it makes sense because the value of the assets expected to be transferred to Coinbase is close to $3 billion, and the transfer is scheduled to be completed in less than 12 hours. So it makes sense that they'll be looking for a very good way of keeping this stuff safe.
Yeah, so they've got a range of holdings, including Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Ethereum, Ripple, and some other altcoins as well. So, yeah.
Yes, all of those holdings are going to Coinbase, and they're now going to be overseen by Coinbase. And I assume it's probably to minimize the risk, or at least downscale the risk that Grayscale has with their cryptocurrency. And I dare say Coinbase probably has some very, very hefty insurance on their Coinbase Custody platform.
But yeah, because they've got a bunch of like security controls, like all this sort of stuff, multiple signatures and all this sort of stuff to get stuff authorized. They got things insured. It seems pretty cool. So yeah, exciting times.
So next bit of news, a teen Fortnite champion has won more than Tiger Woods at the Masters.
Wow. Yeah. So if you haven't heard of Fortnite before, it's a computer game, or it's a game. A bunch of people play off until there's one person left, and you just basically kill everyone else is the aim of the game. But this 16-year-old Kyle Giersdorf, he took home $3 million at the Fortnite World Cup.
Yeah, he's not the only player who had a big payday at the World Cup. Each of the 100 competitors that made it to that final stage were guaranteed $50,000, with 4 of them taking home 7-figure sums for an esports competition.
Yeah, the 5th place player, he won $900,000, and he's just 13 years old.
So
Kid from Argentina as well.
Yeah, yes, he's a very wealthy guy now. So the Duos champion split the same $3 million grand prize, and the team of 4 who won the relatively more casual creative finals took away $1.345 million, which isn't bad for something that's considered more casual.
Yeah, so if it's not clear already, there's a huge amount of money in esports.
Yeah, there definitely is. I mean, this year alone, a team called Team Liquid, who I've followed for years and years and years, they've now got all sorts of teams in different things. Their Counter-Strike team, each of the members in that team have now earned over $1 million just this year from playing a competitive video game.
Wow. I mean, put it in perspective, that teenager who won the Fortnite thing, he earned almost 50% more than Tiger Woods did for winning the Masters. So, I mean, the golfing legend, he scooped up, just over $2 million in his 15th major title. And you've had a 16-year-old kid who's just come out and he's just won $3 million.
Yeah, and look, it's probably just going to increase because it seems like esports are just gaining more and more popularity as time goes on. So, expect that to go bigger and bigger. I mean, the International every year, which is a Dota tournament, I think they had a prize pool of something like $20 million. I was either last year or the year before, or something crazy like that, because they allow their their players to crowdfund the prize by buying like an in-game item, essentially. So the prize pool for that just seems to get bigger and bigger every single year. So there's so much money behind this stuff.
Wow.
And it's great to watch. I mean, if you've never watched any esports, I'm not particularly into Fortnite, but there's a bunch of different esports out there that are really, really good to watch.
All we can do is recommend that guy just puts all his money into Tether and just see what happens.
Oh, well done. That was really good.
Anyway, next piece of news.
So next bit of news, UBS is planning negative interest rates for rich clients.
Yeah, so they're the latest European bank to pass the cost of central banks' quote-unquote lower for longer stance to depositors.
So UBS plans to levy a negative interest rate on wealthy clients who deposit more than $2 million of Swiss francs with its Swiss bank as lenders hunker down for a period of ultra-loose monetary policy.
Yeah, so several banks in Switzerland and the Eurozone already pass on the cost of official negative interest rates to corporate depositors, although most large players have refrained from doing that with individual clients.
Yeah, but it's this trend of lower for longer. It's essentially that the banks seem to be saying that negative interest rates aren't going away anytime soon. It's going to be there for the foreseeable future. And UBS Switzerland is going to, from November, charge 0.75% a year on individual cash balances over 2 million Swiss francs.
Yeah, so that's according to 3 people who are briefed on the plans. But yeah, it underscores how banks in both Europe and the US are really scrambling to prepare for quite a long spell of lower rates that actually does threaten their profitability, because previously they'd been not charging that to people who were depositing money with them, but now they're actually passing it on.
So how did we get here, Joe? Like, why are we at a point in time now where banks are talking about having negative interest rates for the foreseeable future?
At the long and short of it, since 2008, when there was this great financial crisis, which wasn't actually that big a financial crisis, since 2008, central banks have been printing money like there's no tomorrow. They've been printing masses, billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars globally, and just adding more money into the financial system. Now, there's one issue with that, in that if you're printing money, and not many people know how much money is being added into the system. If you're printing money and adding it into the system without an equal rise in the demand for goods and services, the actual value of your money shrinks, and that causes greater inflation. It creates a number of different subsequent issues. If you'd like to learn more about that stuff, I really recommend looking into the Zeitgeist series on money creation. There's a really good explainer of how central banks create money out of nowhere.
So basically what you're saying then, Joe, is that as banks have printed more and more money, allegedly in response to a financial crisis, that's had a knock-on effect in the rest of the economy. It's had a knock-on effect in the monetary system as a whole. And banks have then moved to push interest rates lower and lower and lower to keep people spending. Or keep people taking out loans, sorry.
That's the main one, is negative interest rates pressure people to, keep putting their money into things that aren't their bank. It disincentivizes you from saving. Now, when you look at things like inflation, so the value of your money decreases every year by about 3%. Now, if you keep your money in the bank and inflation's at 3%, your money actually can buy you less every year, every year going forwards. So inflation by itself just means that you probably shouldn't be keeping too much money just sitting in the bank, because it's worth less every year. And negative interest rates are a way of even further. Not only do you have inflation, but also so that you can buy less every year. Inflation, it should actually be called something else because it's a strange name. But also, negative interest rates means they take your money for having money. And also, you actually get, with negative interest rates, the theory behind it is that you can actually be paid to take out a loan.
Right. So it works basically to the advantage of the lenders, but not the savers.
Yeah, 100%. So they're just trying to basically keep the economy moving. It's like a game of musical chairs. They're just trying to stop the music from pausing.
Right. But
Because when the music pauses, things are going to go bad.
but there doesn't really seem to be a way out of this time, does there? This lower for longer thing is not what you want to be hearing when at the beginning of the negative interest rate discussions back a few years ago in Europe, it was talk about, a temporary measure. Like, this is just temporary, just for us to get spending back up a bit, and then then things will normalize. And now,
Yeah, it's been temporary for over a decade.
yeah. I mean, and there's now people talking about, we'll get into this further, but there's talk of it getting even worse, before it gets better.
Yeah, well, I mean, no matter which way you look at it, interest rates are almost like the last line of defense for central banks. It's one of the only weapons they have to try and manipulate our currency and the economy. It's expected that the US Federal Reserve is going to cut interest rates. They may just hold them, but we've been sitting at all-time lows for ages. And it means that if you keep your money in the bank, it's not doing anything. It's not going to earn you anything. You're just losing by keeping it there.
Yeah, I remember when people used to say that putting money in the bank was for savings to get interest was great. I remember people used to live off the interest on their savings if they saved up enough money, because the interest rates were, 10% back in the day and things like
back
that.
when we were kids, you could earn a 15% interest rate. I know there was an HSBC account that was around when I was younger that earned 15%.
Wow. 15%. I mean, now we talk about 2.7% being really, really good.
Generous.
Interest rate. Yeah.
And you'll thank them for the privilege.
And
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
that's not even really keeping up with inflation.
But, on the top of this, Credit Suisse, which is one of UBS's main rivals, they've said the other week that they're thinking about doing the same sort of thing. But yeah, there's a lot of pressure on this. And right now, they're only targeting people who have millions of dollars in their bank. But it doesn't feel like it's going to be that long until it passes down to everyone else. I mean, it's already happening in Germany and I believe Spain and also Japan, where people are huge savers in Japan, but it's not a good time.
Yeah, and they're talking about people being able to avoid the levy by moving balances into different accounts and all sorts of other different things. But the reality is, it will be quite hard to escape this once it starts, because most people's money are locked in that banking system. And I guess to riff off that, there's been a piece recently also on here in Australia, the government is very, very strongly pushing for a total ban on cash down the line.
Yeah. So this has actually come into force just I think it was in July. Australia banned any cash transactions over $10,000. Now, this is a global movement. People are banning cash transactions. And you might want to know, why are people banning cash transactions? And it ties directly into negative interest rates, because a negative interest rate...
Hang on, Joe. No, it's isn't it terrorism and national security? I mean,
standard procedure.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, please continue.
Yeah, no, but yeah, and for a negative interest rate to happen, they need to take money for every dollar you have. If you have $100 and they're taking 0.75%, they need to be able to access your money. And that's why cash is being slowly outlawed, because they cannot set a negative interest rate while people can still transact in cash and take money out of ATMs and things like that, because they can't take your money off you physically. But yeah, so I watched a really interesting video discussing on what is actually going on behind this. And by banning cash, in summary, we'll put a link to this video, but essentially by banning cash, it traps people inside their banks. It enables the laws that they had on banning cash actually enables further restrictions and negative interest rates without parliamentary approval. That law enables, which means you can put more capital controls. It's got the potential to ban cryptocurrencies and gold. And most importantly, you look at Spain and Greece especially, it actually has a potential for bail-ins, where in Greece, I remember this when it happened a few years back, some of the Greek banks literally just took money from people who had 100,000 plus euros in their bank. They took it and used it to bail out the banks. They exchanged it for stock, but the stock wasn't worth the same amount as the cash that they took. So it's literally theft of their depositors.
Yeah, I remember when that happened, and it was a real wake up call for a lot of Greek people to kind of look at their banks in a new light. I think because you'd put money in the bank and you think that's your money, but that proved, and we've seen it in Spain as well, that and I think Cyprus did this too. That the money really isn't yours. It can be taken at any time, taken against your will. And once you're locked into that system and you're in that private custodial banking system, which feeds into the central banking system, your money's really not your own. Like it's only your own as long as the government or the banks don't decide they need it for something.
And just remember what happened to Greece at the absolute trough of their situation. They impose a restriction that you could only take out 60 euros a day from a cash machine. So it means if you want to try and take out all your money, good luck to you.
Yeah, well,
and that's what they want to do.
Held hostage. Your money's essentially just held hostage, and so yeah, it's a really worrying trend. It's off the back of an IMF paper which has been brought out recently, and I read the paper and I was gobsmacked at just how overt. They basically said that they're foreseeing, maybe negative 10%, negative 15% interest rates in the future, and they don't want people to be able to get around them. So cash needs to be eliminated. So not only are those interest rates honoured and lending, they essentially say, well, we want people to keep taking out loans, we want people to want to lend, we want that, the economy to be stimulated, but also we want to be able for governments and central banks to be able to bail in. And that's just there in plain for everyone to see as a recommendation to all the world's governments that you need to ban cash so you can essentially steal people's money. And that's the big thing here is it's not enough anymore that our money is stolen, aka taxed at as we earn it or after we earn it if we're assessed by the tax office. That's not enough anymore, even though tax rates are the highest they've ever been in basically human history. Now you're essentially getting reverse taxed when your money's already been taxed at the source.
So the long and short of it is if your money is in the bank, it's not yours. It is up to the whims of somebody else. And that is actually a really dangerous thing. But, if you're happy to keep your money in the bank, as many of us are, all well and good. However, if you want to be able to control the amount that you spend every now and then, and things like cryptocurrencies will actually make this so much more useful because they cannot apply negative rates to interest to Bitcoin. They cannot control whether you can or cannot use your Bitcoins.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess it's just making Bitcoin more and more attractive, isn't it? Because no longer is Bitcoin a risky an investment when you can basically say the same thing about the banks, like invest in the banks at your own peril. Don't invest more than you can afford to lose in your bank because it may be taken from you at any time.
But yeah, so it sounds like a bit of a downer, but at the same time, when these things come in, it just gives you another reason for why cryptocurrencies are next level awesome, because they're not controlled by these actually dangerous banks. Because the reason we've got these negative interest rates is purely because these central banks have been printing money out of thin air for decades and expecting there to be no consequences. And then when there are consequences, they want to be able to manipulate that same money.
Yeah, well, they want us to pay for it, the people.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're exactly right, man. I think this is really good for Bitcoin, and I would not be surprised to see some kind of ban down the line, because a lot of people are going to start to realize that they don't want to be a part of the banking system anymore. They'd prefer to move to something like Bitcoin, and I can't see governments just sitting down and taking that.
Final piece of news, the Swiss Post are suspending their drone delivery service after a second crash.
Yes, this one is out of spectrum.ie.org. They've said that an emergency parachute failure raises questions about the safety of urban delivery drones as a second drone has crashed.
Yeah, so for about a year, Swiss Post and Matinet have been collaborating on a drone delivery service in 3 different cities in Switzerland. They've been ferrying lab samples between hospitals, which is way quicker and more efficient than what's possible with current ground transportation. So they've made around 3,000 successful flights as of last January. And in perspective, it's only 2 crashes over time. But yeah, as of a January 25th crash into Lake Zurich put things on hold until April. And then there was a second crash in May.
Yeah, and then that caused Swiss Post to suspend services indefinitely. And a recently released interim report published by the Safety Board basically provides some detail on what happened, and was also a reminder that for all the drone delivery hype, there's still some basic problems that aren't really solved yet.
Yeah, so I mean, the first crash, the January one into Lake Zurich, was caused by a short circuit that interrupted power to the drone's GPS. The emergency system worked just fine, and the drone parachuted into the water.
Yeah, but the second crash in early May was somewhat more serious. So an as-yet undefined in-flight issue, which was possibly wind-related, caused the drone to deploy its emergency parachute 2 minutes after launch, but the single tether connecting the parachute to the drone caught on a sharp part of the drone and broke almost immediately.
Yikes. So yeah, the really almost scary part of this was that, according to the German newspaper Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, I don't know how to pronounce that, sorry German friends, the 10-kilogram drone, 10 kilos, it suffered an uncontrolled crash, quote unquote, in a wooded area of Zurich's University Quarter, only 50 yards away from a group of playing kindergarten children.
Wow. And that...
Nobody was hurt, though.
Yeah, good. I mean, that does kind of bring it into perspective, isn't it? Because these drones, like, they're basically going to be flying over very heavily populated areas. Like, they make the most sense to use in the cities. And I didn't even realize they were that heavy. 10 kilograms is, if that's dropping out of the sky and that falls on your head, I mean, that's basically it. You know?
Yeah, I
You're
mean,
not getting back up from that.
You times that by the gravity, and it's pretty painful.
It's like a big falling rock, isn't it?
Oh, mate, yeah, you don't want to be, especially when things are spinning as well. Like, I don't want to mess around with that. But I mean, it reminds me of Elon Musk said this thing on YouTube a few years back. He was answering on why flying cars wouldn't be a thing according to him, and he was like, "Look, think about it. If cars are flying around all above you, you think, when's the last time they got their hubcap service? Because if a hubcap flies off a flying car, it's not a nice outcome.
No, that's a high-speed flying metal disc, isn't it?
Not for me. Not for me.
Anyway, I mean, it's cool that they did 3,000 flights, which all but 2 went really well. So it sounds like we're making a lot of progress. Maybe they just need to make all the edges rounded on these things and maybe have an emergency parachute as well. I don't know.
You're right. But at the same time, 2 out of 3,000 means that's 0.06% of flights. But still, every bit counts. But yeah. Exciting times. Well, that's it for the news.
Cool. So this week in our privacy and security segment, we are going to be talking about Haven.
So what is Haven?
So Haven is a decentralized peer-to-peer marketplace and social media application with support for multiple cryptocurrencies. So it's powered by the decentralized OpenBazaar network, and it runs on your mobile device. And OpenBazaar is essentially a like an open marketplace that started a number of years ago now, where people could buy and sell things in Bitcoin. And they've essentially fleshed out this great little network of essentially a marketplace framework.
Wow. I just went onto their website, openbazaar.org.
Yep.
You can buy music, games, videos, short-term rentals for things, international goods, rare items, local foods. And there's no platform fees and pretty low prices.
Yeah, and someone I know actually is a part of the team on this, and they've done I've been following it for a few years now, and they've done a really good job. And I don't think it's really used enough. It's a great little application, and particularly if you've got crypto and you want to spend it on something in a way that's kind of like Amazon or eBay, but it's all decentralized, all peer-to-peer, works really, really well. And Haven is essentially their mobile version of OpenBazaar.
Oh, so is Haven GetHaven.app?
Yeah.
Is that owned by OpenBazaar?
Yeah, so I'm not sure of the specifics, but it's the same. I think some of the same people are tied up in Haven as are OpenBazaar. They're kind of spinning this off, using the protocol to make it really mobile native.
So they tout the promise of snoop-free shopping. They say that you can buy and sell from wherever you are without these big platforms peeking in and taking a cut.
Yeah, so it really is. They've built a really, really peer-to-peer structure. And so you can list things on Haven or OpenBazaar and then pay for it with cryptocurrency by simply sending it through the app. They essentially facilitate your purchase and hook everything up and make it so that, at the end of the day, it works just like Amazon or eBay.
Yeah, they've also got a private messaging function. They got end-to-end encrypted messaging, so you can enjoy what they say is Snoop-free chats.
And you can obviously send and receive and spend Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and Zcash in their multi-currency wallet in the app.
So they're saying that you can bypass the banks, which is pretty interesting.
It's quite topical considering what we were talking about just before.
So what's this social network layer that they seem to be adding on top of it?
Yeah, I haven't really played with the social network layer, but my understanding is from the parts that I've read about it so far is that it's still very much in beta, but
looks like Twitter from the screenshots that you've seen.
Yeah, and I think it's just for the people that you're kind of connected with, essentially. So no one else can really look in and see what you don't want them to see unless you give them permission to see it, essentially.
So it sounds like, to me, it's an alternative to Amazon or eBay, entirely using cryptocurrency. There's a mobile app for Android or iPhone. You can store your cash in there. You can message the people you're buying and selling off. And yeah, I really am interested to see what goes on with that.
Yeah, like if what we were talking about earlier about kind of detaching yourself more and more from the legacy banking system struck a chord, this could be a really good way to start that. You can essentially test out life just living with crypto by making purchases and dealing with people on a peer-to-peer basis entirely apart from the banking system.
Now, it's worth noting, I just had a look at their terms and conditions, the legal wording. They said that Haven users are not anonymous by default. So while communications between parties are encrypted, IP addresses are public and can be associated with activity on the network. And Haven users must adhere to the laws of their own legal jurisdiction as well as their conscience, which I think is very important. So, yeah, it sounds like what they're saying is, look, even if you break the laws, you've got to actually work to, the laws of nature and conscience.
I like the way they've worded those terms. I think it's a nice balance.
And it looks beautiful. It's a beautiful interface. And the most important thing is this is allowing people to use just cryptocurrency. And that's the future of online commerce, I feel, is that, using cryptocurrencies are the currencies of the internet. US dollars, Australian dollars, Japanese yen, whatever it is, British pounds, they're the currencies of an old era.
Exactly right. This is the future.
Let's jump into the feature.
Here we go.
So it's been 2 years since we started the FOMO show. It's been a long road. There's more than 80 hours of content that we've uploaded.
Really?
Yeah, it's
80 hours.
absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone who's joined us for the ride, thank you so much for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure having you here as always. And yeah, we're so grateful for you wasting your time listening to us two having a chat.
We thought it'd be good since we're 50 episodes in, just to look back on some of what the last 50 episodes have had, talk about some of the predictions we made, what's changed in the last couple of years since we started, where were we right, where were we wrong, and just reflect too on some of the different things that we've done, some of the clips, some of the features, and maybe play a bit too from a few of these different episodes we've done, some of our favorite bits. So this will be a bit of a nostalgia trip. It'll be kind of like, I guess, just tying off the last 50 episodes and looking forward then as well to the next 50 episodes until we hit 100.
Yeah, so I'm going to kick this off with how we started the show. Now, I was a fresh-faced Englishman who was new to Australia. I just moved to Brisbane and I'd moved to do some marketing for a law firm. And I met this interesting lawyer who we used to chat every evening about blockchain, cryptocurrency, technology, freedom, all these kind of random things. And what do you reckon triggered the podcast?
I fell really heavily down the rabbit hole for crypto, and yeah, I just couldn't stop talking about it. And you were already very down the freedom rabbit hole, and we kind of just hit it off and talked crypto, talked freedom, and we do that basically after work every day. So from 5 o'clock onwards, we'd just sit in my office and just chat. And there came a point where we were like, well, we're spending all this time here at work. Why don't we just start a podcast? Why don't we just put mics in front of ourselves and talk about it? I mean, we seem to have a good time talking about it, cover a lot of ground. We talk about a lot of interesting things. Let's kind of formalize it just a little bit more and record it and see if anyone listens. And even if they don't, well, we're doing the same thing.
It really just meant that every 2 weeks, regardless of what's happened, we've just cracked out an episode. And it's been wild.
We just had to do the show. And there's been some funny moments where we've almost not done the show. But for one reason or another, we've cracked on, got the episode recorded, got it out. And it's been awesome. Like, I guess from even just a personal perspective, what I've really learned in doing the show is that you get more out of it than I think anyone else listening probably could. The amount we learn, the amount we need to research, the amount of even just soul searching and learning your own thoughts is incredible. You really start to learn what you think, you reason through things when you're talking them out. And yes, that's been really cool.
So we sat down, I think it was in your house.
Yeah.
You bought some microphones from a shop and some pop filters, and we sat down and we clicked the record button. What happened next?
We recorded about 3 hours of audio and used about 30 minutes of it. And I can still remember doing that edit and listening to it, just being like, what are we even doing? Like, why are we doing this? Because we didn't really write any show notes. We basically just thought, we'll sit down and we'll do exactly what we do in the office. But it's amazing how much things change. Like the moment you've got a mic in front of you and you hit that record button, something just changes.
You freeze up. You totally freeze up. Yeah.
Yeah. And and you're obviously sitting in different positions and you're conscious of your voice and what you're saying. But somehow we got 30 minutes salvaged out of that 3 hour recording, stitched together a Frankenstein of an episode. You can still go and listen to it. And so then for the next episode, we thought, well, we better write some show notes. And we didn't just write show notes for that episode. We basically wrote a script for the entire episode 2.
We used to stumble a huge amount. When you've done it a few times, you're going to get so annoyed at your editing that you're just going to try and get better doing it first time round.
Exactly right. Yeah, we definitely found that we were training ourselves to talk legibly a lot more and saying ums and ahs and all that kind of stuff a lot less.
Because you did the first, 8, 9 edits of the show before I volunteered to do one of them.
Yeah, I was just really keen to crack in and edit. I enjoyed it. I got to admit, like there were moments there where, like, because I'd get really annoyed with myself, obviously, and so I think I was beginning to meter my speech, but I just didn't really want to say anything. So.
Oh, it's so true. It's only when you start editing your own audio when you notice the types of things that you say.
Yeah.
You notice those random words that you use as filler phrases, and
completely.
They get very annoying, and it's so annoying that you actually erase them from your regular conversation.
Definitely. So, yeah, we recorded the second episode, kind of went to the other extreme, had far too much written down. It just didn't sound at all like us and how we normally talk. So, by the third episode, we kind of had things leveled out a bit more and we were getting a bit more used to it. I mean, we we'd spun up our own little website and done a few other different things. We were using this. That's right. I completely forgot about this. We were using this like dodgy, cheap podcast host for the first.
Oh, yeah.
And then they, luckily we got our podcast off their platform just before they basically went bankrupt.
Holy. Did not realize that they went bankrupt.
Yeah. No, they had all sorts of issues, and I think we got frustrated with them when they had issues. And I said, "Oh, we need to do something else." And then not soon after that, it all kind of came out that they weren't making any money.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to move on to the next question: is what's changed in the market, and what have you noticed since we've started? What sort of things have happened in the last 2 years?
The biggest one is probably that a huge amount of altcoins, which we probably thought were pretty hot stuff in the end of 2017 and early 18, a lot of them are just faded into oblivion. You go on CoinMarketCap now, and most of them are just gone. They're just not there anymore. So I thought it'd probably be good if we had a moment of silence for our lost altcoin brethren.
Yep.
May they rest in peace.
I remembered I did my FOMO tax return where I told all our listeners where I was aiming to put my tax return in CryptoWise. Now, I came up with this massive list, and then James, a listener, he put those into a big tracker. So you can actually see the live update of where that went at FOMO.show/tax return. And if you want any reason to never listen to anything I recommend, this link would be it. Now, there was a bunch of coins at the time. Now, I only actually own a couple of them now, and I won't mention which. One of them is EOS. But yeah, a lot of them just completely faded out. 90% of them, 70+% loss. So good thing I didn't jump in on a few of those, but crazy.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. So that's one of the things that's changed. Is it what else has changed since we are in the market?
Look at the ICO trend. Do you remember where things were kicking off? Everyone wanted to do an ICO back in the day. We even had our own guest jump on, Dan the ICO man. And that ICO trend has died off completely. But what about that for timing? He must have his ears burning. What a call coming in from him now. Hello.
Hey, Joe. How you doing?
No way. It's Dan the ICO man. How you doing?
Joe, I am amazing. I heard that you guys are 50 years old.
Close enough. Yeah, sure.
Well, Joe, I just wanted to call and say happy birthday for your 50th birthday. It's amazing you've both been born on the same day. And look, to honor having you guys on the earth for 50 years, I wanted to offer your listeners a once-in-a-lifetime, once-in-a-half-century, Joe, offer from Dan the ICO man.
No way. What is it?
Well, Joe, it is a new product that is in development at the moment. What we're doing is we're taking on the Libra cryptocurrency. Now, Joe, the big problem is with Libra at the moment, they want to keep it. Mark Zuckerberg wants to keep it close to his chest. You know, he wants just Instagram and Stripe and a number of these other big banking and big technology companies to be involved, Joe, but that's not for the little people, Joe.
Yeah.
That's not fair. So, Joe, what I was thinking was, what if Dan the ICO man changes his stripes just a little bit, you know, just tweaks the formula a little tiny bit and says, instead of running an ICO, we take on Libra. Now,
Whoa.
everything's going to be different, Joe. So we're going to make this open source. We're going to make this open, and the issuance is going to be open. We're going to give it to everyone. Just a little bit down the track, Joe. Just to start off with, we're going to have an advisory board. We're going to have a number of companies initially taking seats to kind of custodian it, you know, inject some money, share the love around.
And what's the money based on? Is it gonna what's it gonna be backed by?
Well, Joe, it's going to be backed just like ICOs are backed by math, by the blockchain. So, Joe, we're going to get these companies in. We're going to get them to pump a bunch of money into this thing, and I'm already drumming up support, Joe. They're going to set the policy initially, but what we'll do is in the paper we'll say we'll give it to the people. down the line. You know, we'll get everyone involved. So I want to give your listeners the opportunity to be a part of the advisory board. So that advisory board will advise the advisors, who will then advise the companies, who will be setting the policy on the platform straight away, and then down the line we'll give it to the users.
So who's running it?
Well, Joe, to start off with, I mean, it'll be Dan, the ICO man. I'll be the initial custodian, and then we'll get some companies in, and then I'm thinking maybe Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank, Bank of America, get some good reputation behind this. The NSA reached out to me, said that they wanted to be involved as well, and look, all of it will probably be custodianed over by the World Bank and the IMF, I'm thinking, Joe.
Wow. Cool. Well, that sounds like it's the future.
Anyway, Joe, happy 50 years, happy anniversary, Merry Christmas, Joe, and give your users the link. I look forward to seeing them on the advisory board.
Take care, Dan. Well, as always, he's a salesman, over-promising, under-delivering.
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like he was just basically describing Libra there. So, anyway, I mean, it's nice of him to call us up for our 50th birthdays.
Yeah. So, more generally, what's changed with blockchain and crypto?
So, when we started the show, it was basically all about blockchain, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and we made a number of predictions, talked about all the different ways we thought it was going to change the world. It hasn't turned out in many of the ways, at least I thought it was probably going to. And I can even remember writing a piece, I think it was late 2017 or early 2018, about smart contracts, and the way that things might go and what smart contracts were going to do. And there was all sorts of other people writing that stuff too at the time. You were just thinking that this technology is amazing. It's going to change the world very, very soon. Everyone's going to adopt it. People won't be able to stop. That just hasn't really happened.
So what did you notice with the adoption side of things?
I thought that the power for adoption was going to come from the public side of things. I thought that people were going to see that cryptocurrency was a great way to exchange, and therefore it made sense to start doing commerce, and then you could kind of code those relationships using smart contracts.
So all sort of publicly viewable.
Exactly. You'd have very certain execution of conditional code, and money could flow and transfer.
So what's actually happened?
So what's actually happened is that Ethereum, which was one of the big smart contracting languages, hasn't really taken off. Like there's some areas where it's used, but not many. Even something like EOS, like it's used for like gambling apps, a few other different applications, but not many business cases. Most of the blockchain, quote unquote, adoption has really happened in the enterprise world, and they're using it more as almost like a timestamp database where people can, the base layer is open so everyone can see what's going on, and when information is pushed to that database, it's locked in. So they're just really using it for the traceability and immutability, which isn't really the big deal in my mind anyway with things like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, because they're not really using the monetary side of things.
Because, in many ways, they've moved to that sort of permissioned access. But in other ways, you can actually entirely see why that's happened, because you don't necessarily want everyone to know what's going on. You just want the parties involved to know what's going on.
And you can see why they're doing that. I mean, we've covered Walmart's blockchain project for a number of episodes now, and they just want their supply chain to be involved. They don't want everyone else involved. They just want the supply chain to be involved. Now, that is great on that micro level. Obviously, it makes it only so useful, because if you have it on the macro level where you can start doing business with a lot of third parties that aren't involved in your supply chain, then all of a sudden you can build some incredible applications and things to use. But then you have to trust the public layer. And that's where we've seen, I think that another trend with all this has been people's loss of faith in alternate currencies and tokenization. Because, I mean, you saw it back with the ICO craze. Like, it was like, tokenize everything. Tokenization is going to be the future. We're going to have all these different currencies. They're going to do all these different things. And that hasn't really eventuated at all. So what do you see did you want to talk to that, or? Yeah,
well, I think as much as smart contract usage is in public at least, is a long way off. I think the fact that the technology's been built means that, I really think that this could be something that could be huge in the future, because, it may not end up as we thought it may be, but having a contract with somebody else that's digitally signed, with your encryption keys or whatever it would be, I think smart contracts makes so much sense, because you're a lawyer, you know this very well. When two people write an agreement, let's say you and I write an agreement to have, to license something, or for me to rent a house off you, or whatever it would be, we have a contract written out in paper. But if any breaches happen, you have to spot that and then take me to court. Whereas in a smart contract, that's more digital, which is really cool.
Yeah, you can essentially have the code enforcing the terms of the contract, and it becomes an active contract. So instead of someone just being able to do the wrong thing and then you needing to go through all the motions to chase them up, if they try and do the wrong thing, the code just says, no, you can't do that. That's against my rules. And you've potentially headed off, millions of dollars lost, or someone doing something that's going to take years and years to claw the money back or enforce it or whatever. So the ability to deal with money directly on the platform, which is what a smart contract does, is programmable money. That's a really powerful concept. Now, whether we see it in layer one, like we've seen with what Ethereum and EOS and those kinds of guys do, or whether we see it as more like a layer 2 or layer 3 solution on something like Bitcoin with Lightning or whatever. Who knows? But the concept itself, I completely agree, mate. I think it's still an absolute ripper, and it's still exciting for all the reasons we got excited about it. Yeah. I think we just got so far ahead of ourselves, it's probably how the guys felt about the internet when it was first starting to build.
Let's move on to decentralized applications, or dApps. What do you seem to recall us expecting versus where things have gone with dApps?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we because we used to look at Decentraland and District 0x and the 0x protocol and all sorts of other different decentralized applications, which are essentially blockchain applications, and we thought they would become the norm. We thought most users would want to adopt them; they'd trust it more. The idea of tokenizing things would be very, very attractive, but I don't know whether it's been lack of funding, lack of marketing, or just plain it's a solution looking for a problem, but they haven't really taken off the way we thought they would. And the ones that have taken off are generally in two areas. They're generally in gaming and gambling.
And exchanges.
Yes.
Because, you look at, there's a website, DApp Radar, which lists the most popular decentralized applications by volume in money in the last 24 hours. It's all gambling with two exchanges there, and those are like decentralized exchanges.
They're serving certain purposes, and I think they're serving them quite well. But for that to translate to other purposes, I think we're a long way off yet. And we've just got to kind of scale out our timeline. A lot of the time people are quite happy with the status quo until they're not. Until something changes. And I'm more and more of the view that we're not going to see a big shift towards decentralized money and applications and that kind of stuff until people lose faith in legacy banking, which it's looking more and more like we may get our wish as these banks and these governments move to increase capital controls and introduce negative interest rates and eliminate cash and all that kind of stuff.
It seems clear that we're not living in the decentralized future, but I think moving towards, where no single unit is in control of a lot of these platforms, where, it prevents certain things like censorship. Decentralized stuff is just it's going to be like a slow burning in the background until, as more and more people get cut off these platforms and more news gets cut off and more things happen here and there, you're going to see people from China or wherever else moving to these platforms.
And the thing is too, it's giving time for the tech to mature as well.
So what have we changed about the FOMO show over the last 2 years? How have we morphed and adapted?
Well, the biggest one is that we've branched out. Like when we started the show, we were just talking about blockchain, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, that kind of stuff. But as things have evolved, and I mean, we've got a number of different interests, and we were talking about emergent tech anyway. So we basically just pushed that out to talk about a lot more emergent tech and a number of things that are connected to it. So we've even pulled in some geopolitics and other things.
That's the thing, is because both of us really love like future tech. We love talking about the cool stuff that's on the horizon, new stuff for computers, new VR stuff, that sort of sci-fi that's turned into tech. Space travel. That's one thing I've loved, is just this, like, watching Elon Musk and Tesla and SpaceX. And as a aside, I'm a Tesla shareholder, so don't be biased, but buy Tesla shares, mate. We've just really followed what we're loving.
Yeah, and look, as part of that, we've kind of shied away. Like, a lot of shows do a lot of interviews, and we talked about doing that back when we were fresh podcasters, and we tried doing a few interviews, and we do like it, but I guess that just isn't really us. Like, I think we enjoy more just getting together and talking about what we like, and picking something each week that we can flesh out on and discuss in a bit more depth.
And it's a lot of planning to do interviews as well, but we do have a few big ones planned every here and there. So next episode, so excited to chat to Alex Svetsky in person. I've been following him on LinkedIn and in the news, but I've never actually met him spoken to in real life. So I'm not getting a celebrity crush here, but I'm pretty excited for next episode.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be really good, and that should be a bit of a bumper episode too. I think we're gonna cover a lot of ground with that.
We've also done very little tweeting as of late. We used to be massive on, doing our Twitter stuff and all that sort of thing and social media. But I think as time's gone on, we've both really lost love for all of our social networks. I mean, I haven't been on Facebook in years. You were keeping our Facebook stuff posted. We got a Twitter account, but I rarely tweet.
I've never been a big tweeter either, and same thing. I've lost love with Facebook. I use LinkedIn quite a bit, but that's that comes with the territory of what I do. I mean, even some of the decentralized options we've covered, we just haven't really, I guess, clicked with, and they're a bit more. They're a bit harder to get into anyway. You've got to have a community and build a community and have an established community. I mean, we're active on Telegram. That's probably what we use the most.
It's been a little quiet recently because I guess you've been a dad. Like, since you became a dad, I think both of us have been quite busy, and it's quieting down a bit. We're going to jump back into our Telegram and keep that alive and running because, it's good to see links that you guys are sharing, and we love that platform. So, if you're interested, join us on FOMO.show/Telegram, supposedly encrypted chat app. What's changed in our lives? I mean, what are you up to these days? I mean, a lot of listeners might not know what you do.
Yeah, so I mean, apart from being a dad, which has been a bit of a big change recently, and not getting a lot of sleep, I'm a technology lawyer now. So I made a choice a while ago now to kind of combine my day job with my interests. So we'd been doing this podcast, and I have all sorts of different little projects that go on the side that I undertake in the tech space. And I found that there was a decent need in the legal world as well for a lawyer that understands this stuff. A lot of software companies and tech companies, or even just a lot of more traditional companies, traditional businesses, which are doing things which involve tech, which involve kind of complex commercial relationships where they're pulling in data from different places and all sorts of different things like that. So that's basically become my day job. I call myself a technology and business lawyer. So I do a lot of work for startups, small and medium enterprises.
So I guess what that means in a number of ways. So I guess you look after a lot of contracts and a lot of the legal writing.
Yeah, so I do that. I look after some structuring as well. So that's more from the setup perspective of people who are looking to portion their risk a little bit better. Deal with some elements of intellectual property. I don't really deal with trademarks or patents because that's a very strange and murky area that patent attorneys deal with. But yeah, like it's a lot of commercial relationships and just a lot of, I guess, risk management too, like actually working out what you need now, what you're going to need down the track, what questions you should be asking when you're negotiating with other businesses, what internal policies you should have. It's a kind of a holistic approach, because where we're at now is that so many companies are at risk. If you're holding data, you're at risk of not only getting sued by the people who you're holding the data on behalf of if something goes wrong, but you're also at risk of getting sued by other companies for which the data passes through, and also the government. If you have a data breach, there's some pretty specific expectations now and the reporting obligations, and so there's just a lot of risk. And I mean, my initial background when I started in legal world was litigation, so I was on the other side of a lot of things. I was dealing with it when everything went wrong. So
that actually gave you a really good insight into actually spotting risk, because you worked on the other end of attacking or defending from that risk perspective.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of I generally say what could go wrong and work backwards, like what would I not want to see come across my desk? So
you got to be a bit of a pessimist in some ways when you look at these things and just say, okay, let's assume everything screws up. How do we protect you?
Definitely. It's all about, and I mean, you got to be pragmatic about it too. Like there'll be times when you can take it too far and say, we're getting a little bit too detail focused now. Like there's some risks that are just need to be accepted. You don't need to write out 2 pages worth of contracts for a risk that's probably never going to happen. And you might be able to handle that with a sentence. So there's a real balancing act there too, particularly when people are paying you good money. When people are paying you good money for your advice and for your insight, you got to be realistic too. You've got to run a business.
And let's not forget, lawyers bill in 6-minute increments, bro.
Yeah, I try and fix fee a lot more of what I do, but
right.
But yeah, anyway, so that's me. That's what I do. And
just before we move on from there, I think that's really important, because chatting to a few different people, you can find that a lot of the time people are really eager to make a sale, so they'll sign any contract that comes into them because they can see some dollar figures coming in. But really, like, I've really noticed, having both worked in the same law firm as you, but also having witnessed some different contacts that I know who work in business, people are really so eager to sign forms, but they'll miss out on a lot of the things where they have responsibilities for things. There's, your intellectual property gets transferred as soon as you start working, or la, 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 la. Now, you as a lawyer, you spot that and you think, okay, no transfer of intellectual property until the job's complete and you've paid me. Yeah. It's really good that they got people like you in their corner.
Yeah, look, that's it's funny that you bring up IP, because that's probably the biggest one that people drop the ball on. Is when does it transfer? How does it transfer? Is there licensing going back and forth? That's a massive deal, and yeah, a lot of it can be. It honestly is worth the money. Like it really is. If you're negotiating agreements with big money, even if it's with small money, I've sat across the desk from people who are doing due diligence on potentially purchasing a company, and one of the first things they ask is, are we sure that the company actually owns everything that it says it owns? And it could be as simple as a developer contract you had 5 years ago with a contractor who built one bit of code, but if it wasn't very clear who owned that intellectual property in that code,
then you're buying nothing.
Exactly. That potentially the company does not own the product or that part of the product that it says it does, which can mean that the whole thing will fall over. A company that may have been acquired for millions either may not be acquired for all, or maybe acquired for a fraction of that. So it's there's a lot to consider. There's a lot to talk about when you're going into business with other people or commercial arrangements, and it can be very fraught.
That's insane. I've heard some cool stuff about what you're doing, and man, it sounds like you've got a great gig.
Yeah, things are pretty good, and I never thought I'd be dealing in the type of law I am, and it's honestly great fun. I really, really do enjoy it. Yeah, that's me, mate. So how about you? What's changed in your life since we started the podcast?
I left the firm that we were both working at, and I went to run marketing for a cybersecurity and IT consulting firm. And I freaking love it, man. It is the best job I have ever had, hands down. It's been almost a year now. It's been like 11 months and 20 days, I think, somewhere around that. So I look after all our events, our website, our advertising, our presentations when we're doing big pitches, look after sales documentation. I look after random other things as well that just happen here and there because I just, like the document templates that we use as a company, I design those because I like fonts and line spacing and trying to make us look awesome. But dude, I have the best job.
Oh, and mate, let me say, like, I think you've killed it with the look and feel of everything. Like when you get onto your website, and I've seen some of the stuff you've done too. It looks really good.
Oh, mate, thank you. Working at a cybersecurity firm and IT networking cloud firm is insane because I get to see what a lot of the people are working on. So I've learned so much about how networks work, how, big, switches, routers, all that sort of stuff, wireless. And my favorite part is cybersecurity because we have a team of people who just hack things. And if you're a bank or an insurance company, you pay us to hack your system to prove that it's secure. And we've got some incredibly smart people, and I hope they're not listening because they'll take that way to heart and get really bigged up. But I'm working in a company with, it's only about 60 people in the company, but the brain power is insane. So I'm learning at the speed of light. It's awesome. So I'm learning about all the tech that I love, learning about how things are hacked, how secure systems, how to build scalable infrastructure. Man, I'm living the dream. Absolutely loving every day of it.
So what's some of the lessons that you've learned then from working in a cybersecurity firm for the last year?
Well, if you're building a product, like a software product or even a hardware product, you assume that because there are some smart people in your business, it's secure. And I can tell you for a fact that it's not. If you're not sure that you're an expert on securing software, you need to pay somebody who's an expert in securing that because it's so easy to think that you know things, but if you're not sure at all, you've absolutely got to get it checked because this, like, millions of dollars are at stake with a lot of these companies.
Yeah. And it's too late once things go wrong, too, isn't it?
And some other things I've learned is just, even basic things like I've had a great boss. My boss will actually take the time I got an email on Saturday saying, thanks for helping with those PowerPoint presentations last week because we were doing a pitch for some company. Wow. He said, thanks for taking the time. It went like a breeze. They were so impressed, la, la, la. But this guy gets hundreds and hundreds of emails a day, and he takes the time to message me to say, thank you.
Wow.
And one final point, I went up and I said, look, I need a new computer. This is 6 months ago. My boss goes, okay, come with me. We walk up to the guy who looks after computers in the office. He goes, Joe needs a new computer. The computer's on my desk 2 days later, set up.
And it was a beast too, wasn't it?
It's a good machine. So yeah. Anyway, I'm loving my job, having a great time, trying to do great work, and lots of exciting things. We're moving into a new office soon, entire floor in the center of Brisbane, and it's going to be awesome.
So cool. Now, Joe, you've been talking about us doing more video.
Yeah, do you know, I'm terrified of video because I don't really want to go on camera. Like, I felt the same about audio. I was very hesitant to do a podcast because I didn't feel like my voice should really be out there and shared with people.
Which is ridiculous because you've probably got one of the best radio voices going around, particularly in Australia.
Stop it. But do you know what? I'm so hesitant to go into video, except I realized, do you know what? These things that we're terrified of, you do it 20 times and then you get really comfortable at it. So I figure let's just do it uncomfortably 20 times and we'll get maybe okay at it. So yeah, hopefully we're going to do some more, some video podcasts a few months from now. I'm going to see if we can get the new office that my business is moving into, see if we can get both of us in there and just do filming from there.
I think it'd be great. We've talked about it for a long time. A lot of other podcasts are doing video, but we'll see how we go. I'd be pretty keen to do it though.
What are some of our favorite introduction clips to the episodes?
If you've listened to us for any time at all, you know that every episode we have introduction clips, and this was something that really started very early on in our in our podcast journey. And we initially did it as more of like a funny thing to have different people recommending listening to the FOMO show. And then it kind of morphed into what it is now. And we used to be quite hesitant about what we put in those intro clips.
Not being too political, we sort of wanted to be quite politically correct and sort of just state a funny things some of the time. But sometimes the news has just meant that we get so riled up that we really want to share a piece of what we're thinking with our listeners.
So we've rounded up a few of our most meaningful introductions.
First one was right after Julian Assange's arrest in London, where he was pulled out of the Ecuadorian embassy by British police. And the episode after that, here's what we put. It was a clip from John Pilger.
We've handed a whole world of the abandonment of basic democracy, which is based on dissent, on challenging, on holding power to account, on revelation, on the embarrassment of power. And WikiLeaks provided that service, that public service of journalism, and it did it without fear or favor. What we're in the midst of at the moment is the world's great superpower struggling to maintain its dominance, its information dominance, its technological dominance, its cultural dominance. And WikiLeaks has presented an extraordinary hurdle to this. Julian Assange then has become enemy number one, but he should be, and I don't say this lightly, he should be hero number one.
Yeah, that's one of my favourite clips of all time. That was really, really good. And then, not too long after that, there was some search warrants issued on journalists here in Australia by the federal police, and essentially these warrants were executed without really much due process at all, and it was executed on people who were trying to expose potential war crimes.
And that was using that assistance and access bill in part, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think it was involved, and there was another bill in there, like the counter-terrorism bill as well. I think was.
These are some very extreme bills that apply to Australia. So here's a piece that we put in more recently that it's both humorous and brilliant.
Either way, you'll need a search warrant first. So come on, let's make one together. Now, first of all, we're going to need a piece of paper. I tore this out of the Constitution. It's meant to have a Bill of Rights on it, but it's blank. Okay, now just ask a grown-up for a pair of scissors. Be careful. And with me, we're going to cut corners on journalistic safeguards. Okay. And then grab your texter, and we're going to draw our parameters. So keep it nice and broad, really close to the edge there. Emails, metadata, underpants drawers, whatever you need to show that Australia is nice and safe. And if you make a mistake, don't worry, because you can always add, copy, alter or delete anything you want. Now, just grab some glue because we need to make our case stick. There we are. Pat that down. And of course, then we have to write national security to stop people asking pesky questions. And the best thing of all, you don't even need a judge to sign off on it. Can you spell Queen Bee and Registrar? Me neither. Okay, we've got our warrant now. It's time to be a federal police officer. Let's be the AFP. You might have even seen us on TV. Just following orders, don't blame me. How good is democracy?
That was probably the furthest we'd ever gone up to that point.
How good is democracy?
It was really, really cool.
Sometimes our episodes were just a little more just chilled, but still there was a clip from John Lennon from the Beatles, and he had something really insightful to say. So we had to put that at the episode 33 intro.
I think all our society is run by insane people for insane objectives. If anybody can put on paper what they are actually trying to do, and what they think they're doing, I'd be very pleased to know what they think they're doing. I think they're all insane.
Yeah, it was really zany to hear someone saying that so far back, because some of us talk about that now, but yeah, he was kind of prescient, wasn't he?
I'm pretty sure that was age restricted on YouTube, that specific YouTube clip.
Really?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and that guy got killed not too long afterwards, but he was very switched on in some ways. So yeah.
In episode 29, we played a second. So we actually played 2 clips from a Federal Reserve documentary. You kind of had to hear them to believe that they were actually a part of a serious documentary, because they kind of sound like satire when you play them. So we'll play those both now.
Since its establishment in 1913, the Fed has increased public confidence in our monetary system and earned a reputation as a strong and credible inflation fighter. In the area of electronic banking, the Federal Reserve plays a leading role in bringing the benefits of a faster, more efficient, and secure payments mechanism to the economy.
So the values of the money we use every day are the values fixed by the government. The paper bills and even the coins are not in themselves actually worth the amounts they represent. As long as people remain confident that our government is strong and secure, they will continue freely to accept and spend its money without questioning the value.
Yeah, it's amazing that they weren't a part of some kind of parody or satire.
I guess it's very easy for us to comment now, but they would never have seen that coming back then. But Lee, just goes to show that, things are just crazy. Yeah, mate, what were some of the funniest introductions we've had?
One of the ones that obviously stands out was our first ever introduction, which was in episode 2, where we had Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama, proving the FOMO show. So we'll play that one.
I'm Barack Obama, candidate for president, and I approve the FOMO podcast.
The wonderful, wonderful FOMO show.
Yeah, I miss those ones where we actually had people approving our show.
We should totally do that again.
We should. I think we definitely should.
We did a couple episodes now. I think both of us are huge fan of some of these old British comedy shows. I'm a big fan of Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie. They did the show called A Bit of Fry and Laurie, and 2 of the intros in episode 32 and episode 18 were from A Bit of Fry and Laurie. So we'll put them both now.
Glorious July afternoon. What a splendid sight it is. It's an absolute picture, isn't it? The sun beating down now. Beautiful day. Crowds. Not a seat to be had anywhere. Packed house. Yeah, absolutely packed. And the grass looking so lovely. Green as anything. Green as you like. Absolutely as green as could be. Yes. Grass has never looked greener. Yeah, what a scene. What a scene. Marvellous scene. Oh, I say, look, there's a bus.
My father was a Conservative. My mother voted Labour, so I suppose by rights I should be a Liberal Democrat. But in actual fact, I'm a Nazi.
Glorious July afternoon. What a marvellous.
Oh, look, there's a bus.
So British. I remember one of my greatest memories of Stephen Fry was seeing him live, actually, a few years ago. He just did this monologue for like 40 minutes on the Ashes, which are actually going on at the moment too. And Australia just won the first test against England over in England, but he just, like, his knowledge and his humour around the Ashes and cricket in general is just, he's very, very intelligent.
Wow.
Yeah, we had a couple of good ones from Fawlty Towers too, which is another great show, British show as well.
Let's play him now.
Deaf, mad and blind. This is the view as far as I can remember, madam. Yes, this is it.
When I pay for a view, I expect something more interesting than that.
That is Torquay, madam.
It's not good enough.
Well, may I ask what you were expecting to see out of a Torquay hotel bedroom window? Sydney Opera House, perhaps? The hanging gardens of Babylon? Herds of wildebeest sweeping majestically?
Don't be silly. I expect to be able to see the sea.
You can see the sea. It's over there between the land and the sky.
I need a telescope to see that.
Well, may I suggest that you consider moving to a hotel closer to the sea? Or preferably in it? Manuel, there is too much butter on those trays.
No, senor.
What?
Not on those trays. No, sir. Uno, dos, tres.
Oh, isn't John Cleese brilliant?
Yeah, he is.
Just his sense of anger, how it comes through.
The very first intro we ever had, which I think it was probably a good place to end this, was actually our very own Joe Swin introing the first ever FOMO show.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're currently cruising at 23,000 feet. Discussing cryptocurrencies. Take it away.
Oh, mate, that was so butchered in the end.
That was brilliant, mate. I still got so many good memories from that. That just came from, I think it was part of our mucking around somewhere in the podcast, probably like 2 hours in.
All the best things seem to have come that way. Eh?
Mate, there's also been a number of classic moments over the last 2 years of the podcast.
When Jordan Cronje, who's our South African roving reporter, he predicted Venezuela's petro cryptocurrency, and it was wild.
Yeah, he basically called us from somewhere in Venezuela and said that he was working on a cryptocurrency, and then he called us from prison. He'd been imprisoned, and they were essentially claiming that they had invented it, and that was backed up in the news because Petro came out right around the time Jordan went to prison. 2 weeks after, he said he'd been working on a cryptocurrency with the government.
Ugh, man, I'm furious, huh? I saw the Reuters notification pop up on my phone last week, and I've gotten my Venezuelan legal team on the case. As you know, and as the FOMO listeners know, I created this currency, huh? I taught it everything it knows. I raised it as my own child, history in the making, and Jordan Cronje doesn't get any credit, not one iota, huh?
So that was very wild.
Prescient.
Yes.
Prescient.
Yeah.
Yes.
I also remember we didn't really let our listeners in on the time, but we actually got filmed for a documentary at one stage.
Yeah, and there was some lights and cameras in our recording studio at the time, and that for some reason the electromagnetic interference from the lights or whatever it was completely blew our recording.
Yeah, we couldn't rescue it at all. It was that botched. We had to record again. So
there's an entire episode lost.
Yeah. It's like the lost files. It's somewhere out there. Someone has a good copy of that episode that wasn't butched.
So one of my favorite memories is you did an incredible recount in episode 34. You did an amazing deep dive into Australia's Assistance and Access Bill, which was an incredibly repressive piece of legislation that came into Australia that essentially allowed the government to secretly interfere with companies acting in Australia. So by changing the way that they did business, the software they used, forcing them to send data to the government, all these things without telling anyone.
Yeah.
And you did an incredible roundup of that. So yeah, that was episode 34. That was a great piece of research you did there.
Thanks, man. I think it was fueled by rage. That whole week, I was just kind of in a red haze after I saw the bill that got passed through, and so yeah, I did a big write up on it, and we could probably put the link to that in the show notes too. But
yeah, that was great. In fact, Google even pulls out. You know, when you search AA, like I was searching AA bill legal explanation, Google actually pastes, puts your text from your article into one of those pull-out sections.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it was wild.
Wow. There you go. Yeah, I don't think I've been that angry, like that angry for a sustained period of time for a long time. We also regularly struggle with whether we're going to include things in on the podcast, and particularly the introductions, but also a number of the news articles we cover and everything else.
Yeah, because I mean, there are certain things that we're a little. I don't know. We found that there's been a little too. There hasn't been enough questioning, for example, on things like the health implications of 5G, and I think there's a difference between being crazy conspiracy theory and actually being legitimately skeptical questioning that should happen on some of these things, but it gets dismissed too easily. So, yeah, we've often struggled with some of those topics that we've talked about.
Yeah, because it's hard. Like, we don't want to come off as tinfoil hatters. And at the end of the day, like, this is mainly an emergent tech podcast, and we are really excited about tech. It's just that also, you know, our alter egos, which we don't bring out as much on the show, quite pessimistic individuals and look at the world through a very different lens. So there's always a bit of a balance between that, and we try and, you know, mix a bit of healthy skepticism in and pessimism, but not too much.
Being on the forefront of technology, like watching those areas, there is such a fine line. It's literally like a two-faced coin between, you know, amazing potential of this technology and also the incredible restriction and imprisonment that this technology allows for. So both with blockchain or whether with new technology and wireless and 5G and a lot of these services and social media, there's a great side, but also there is, and you can see, all you need to do is look at China to see that there is a dark side of a lot of this.
Yeah, definitely. And look, at the end of the day, like a lot of podcasts probably don't ask those questions and talk about those sides of things, and it's something that we do like discussing. I think it needs to be discussed. Not everything is going to be a net positive for society. A number of technologies which looked promising at the beginning, they tend to have a different effect when they're implemented over time.
And look, if you don't like what we have to say, just unsubscribe, please.
But we do love having you listening.
Oh, we do, absolutely. But I was listening to that Straight Outta Compton album by NWA, which is Crackers with Attitude. And yeah, there was this tune, Gangsta Gangsta, and Ice Cube is like, if you don't like how I'm living, then F you. And it's just so powerful.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I need to embrace the Ice Cube attitudes of life, mate.
Yeah, definitely. There's also been some fun news. One of my favourite times is when we covered the hash war. And I think we even called in on Jordan Cronje, who was reporting from the hash war at the time too.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you the latest from our developing story.
Jordan, can you hear me?
Yes, Matt, long story. I'm out of where I was. I'm in a new place. I'm covering the Bitcoin war. I'm in the trenches with the sites, and there's chaos everywhere. Chaos on the streets. It's insane. Absolute insanity.
Yeah, Jordan, I can hear. Wow, those are explosions in the background, and that's gunfire, isn't it?
No, I've been in the trenches with both sides. Currently, I'm with Bitcoin SV. Damage control is everywhere, left, right, and centre. These explosions. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. I just. Yikes, you don't want to be here. Don't stay away from the Bitcoin war, huh?
Yeah, that was such a good. That was so good. Cryptocurrency, that whole thing is just a bunch of children running around in the playground, shouting at each other, bullying each other, all that stuff. And Jordan Cronje was just front line for that.
Yeah, it's just internet tribalism, isn't it? Really,
at its best. Oh, some of those other bits it's probably no secret to anybody, but we love watching Elon Musk and the stuff he's doing. We've seen we've been watching the Hyperloop, the electric cars, the space stuff, Neuralink. Even just last episode was Neuralink, but it's insane. The guy we need to get him tested for drugs.
We do. Or for being a robot. Or an alien.
I think that's probably more likely, actually. Yeah.
Who knows?
He's definitely connected himself to AI directly.
The singularity. We've also discussed some really, really interesting features. I mean, there's been a bunch of them that I've really enjoyed putting together and helping put together and discussing. One of the ones that sticks out in my mind was when we discussed the future of human governance. So how may we govern ourselves in the future using a bunch of this technology that's coming out?
Yeah, just talking about like that whole idea on rulership and rules and stuff like that. That was so good. I guess my favorite as far as cryptocurrency goes is episode 9 when we did a big dive into privacy coins and actually why they matter.
Yeah, we kind of dug down a little bit deeper and didn't just look at the coins themselves, but also talked about what they actually mean and why we should be bullish on privacy coins as a concept and why they're important. So, yeah, that was really, really fun. That one still sticks out even after a year and a half.
The one that I was most excited at the end of the episode was episode 36, the Star Citizen episode, which is this massive universe game where you can explore space, go in a spacecraft, get out, land on random planets. And there's such a huge vision for this. And we explored that in episode 36, but holy crap, you got me into that. And it's such a big vision.
Yeah, no, it's massive. I mean, it's a game I backed back in 2012 when it first got announced, and the vision is essentially like this living, breathing universe where you can everything's seamless. So you can walk around as your character, you can jump in a spaceship, you can fly around. There's solar systems are properly modeled. You can land on planets, land on stations, FPS combat, ship combat, trading, commodity, pirating, permanent buildings. You name it, it's probably in it. It's probably on the roadmap somewhere. And that's. I think we'll probably check back in on that maybe next year sometime and just see where that's at, because things are gradually moving quicker now with development for it.
One of the other ones that stuck out, like on the gaming theme, was episode 10, our Game Coins episode. We had a really cool feature. It started off with a clip from a listener and just went into, how cryptocurrencies and gaming can sort of merge, and really interesting how that can happen. But what would your last roundup be on our favorite features?
I really enjoyed the open source security episode. So when we talked about how people can essentially find out information on other people on the internet and all the different tools that they can use to do it. That was a real eye-opener for me. I mean, I was aware of a few of the tools, but nowhere near the amount of stuff that's actually out there if you want to perform intelligence and find someone.
Just seeing those tools and being able to use them and trying to use them against yourself, trying to discover your other usernames, what your address might be, or publicly available information. Just going from one item, like just a username, and being able to find out more about people. Insane.
Yeah. And look,
so that was episode 42, wasn't
episode 42, yeah, which was, funnily enough, the WikiLeaks episode as well. So, yeah, and look, if you're a new listener, if you're relatively new and you've only been listening to the last few episodes, there is a wealth of information in the features that we have done. So definitely feel free to just go back and have a look at a number of the other episodes we've done in the past and just see if anything piques your interest there. I mean, some of the news probably won't be as relevant to you now, but we put timestamps in each and every one of our episodes. So you can always just download the episode, click on the time link where the feature is, and then just listen to the feature.
So at some point in the future, we will probably end up coming up with a good way of indexing all the different things we talked about so it's easy to explore. But yeah, and those are just our top 5.
So that's 50 episodes, mate. I've really, really enjoyed it so far. And
here's to the next 50.
That's
Holy.
right.
It's flown past.
It really has. And look, if you've got any great memories, or if there's just something you want to share with us, feel free to jump on Telegram. You can message us in the chat. We love doing this, and we love talking to everyone. And thanks for coming along for the journey. So considering it is our 50th episode, and we've been doing this for 2 years now, we thought it would be a good time to check in with a number of our guests, get their thoughts on maybe the 50th episode, or just, check in and see how they're doing, and maybe talk to a couple of guests that we haven't talked to in quite some time as well.
Yeah, so we actually received an answer phone message from a visitor called Citizen X. Now, we last talked to him in episode 44, which is not too long ago, but he had some really random things to be saying about Craig Wright back then, but he left us an answer phone message. We figured we'd just put it in for this show.
Hey Matt, hey Joe. It's been a few episodes, but I just wanted to say congratulations on 50 episodes. here's a question that most people just go through their lives, just never think about it, man. What do we really know about Humpty Dumpty? Who was he? Who was he working for? Was he pushed? How do we know? Was it an inside job? Was Humpty Dumpty even an egg? What do we really know? There's more questions than answers, man. Clearly, the powers that shouldn't be want us to not know the truth, but it's gonna get out eventually. So that's what I'm saying. Humpty Dumpty, who was he? Congratulations, I'll catch you soon.
Ah, okay.
Oh, we got a phone call coming in. That is a weird South African number. Oh, 3 guesses who that is. Let's pick it up.
Okay. Hello?
Oh, bro, hey, it's Jordan, huh? How you doing, huh?
Jordan, I'm doing well, mate. How are you doing?
Oh, bro, I was just congratulating you on episode 50. I saw your message in the Telegram chat. You said what were your best memories of the FOMO show, and so many that Zimbabwe coin for one for me was a big episode. But I had a big present planned for you, huh?
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I mean, Joe's here with me as well.
Oh, hey, Jordan. How you doing?
Oh, bro, yeah, I'm good, huh? Look, it's funny you should, look, I had a whole bunch of new articles that I've written for the FOMO site. I did some soul searching. You guys are the only constants in my life. So I wanted to reward you, right? But you wouldn't believe it, huh?
What wouldn't we believe, Jordan? What happened?
Yeah, what happened, Jordan?
Oh, bro, there's been a tragic accident, huh? I was speaking at the IMF. I was helping him with their policies on quantitative easing, eliminating cash, destroying the world, all of these things, I was trying to reduce travel, make sure it was easier to monitor people wherever they went on the planet and increase surveillance and all these things. Just the good things that you want to do to your citizens, huh? But look, more of the story is this, I lost all of the articles that I wrote for you, huh?
You lost all the articles, Jordan? I mean, I assume the articles were digital.
Oh,
what happened?
Bro, I'm a pretty, I'm a traditional journalist. I stick to the old techniques. I use pen and paper. I'm not messing around. No one can spy on me. No one can, digitally hack into my things and get my pieces and my words. And look, bro, it must have been somewhere between Djibouti and Switzerland, but they're gone, huh? So, look, I'm really sorry, huh? And it turns out my insurance is lapsed, so there's no insurance on the articles, but it's not the end of the story, huh?
It's not the end of the story.
But, there's not, yes, that's it really. It's not good news, but I mean, congratulations on 50 episodes, huh?
Thanks, Jordan. Appreciate that.
Yeah, not a problem, Jordan. I mean, look, we can wait. We can wait a couple of weeks. If you want to put those articles back together, we can publish them once you get back on your feet. I'm sure the IMF are probably paying you pretty well.
Oh, bro, thank you. I'll catch you soon, huh?
See you, Jordan.
Mate, thank goodness we haven't been paying him for well over half a year.
Yeah, I know. It's classic Jordan that on a 50th episode when he probably should have put the articles in, he's got another excuse.
Yeah, standard procedure.
Anyway, I mean, I was half expecting him to say that he'd been hacked by Anonymous or he'd fallen out with the yellow vests or... Yeah.
So... Back in episode 7, we spoke to a gentleman called Trader Tim. He is from, I think it was southern...
Somewhere in South America, yeah.
He actually left us a message.
Yes, we'll play that now.
You have one new voice message. First voice message.
Well, howdy, fellas. Look, I just thought I'd give you a quick call. I heard you're touching up on your 50th show. Well, look, you don't really probably remember me, but you interviewed me way back, around about episode 6 or 7 in the show, and you never called me back, and so I just wanted to let you know that I'm now a billionaire. I've made a whole bunch of money on the markets. I could have given you all sorts of great advice on how to trade and what cryptos to buy and what cryptos to sell, but you didn't get any of that. You guys aren't millionaires because you didn't call me back. So I just want to let you know I'm now living on an island. I now got a yacht. I got basically everything I want, and I will never call you guys again. So all the very best. Happy 50th birthday.
Wow. Well, that's kind of deep. And we're still in the working life and he's sitting on a yacht.
Yeah, maybe we should have called him back. I mean, I vaguely remember that some of what he said might have been inappropriate in his recording, and we made a decision not to call him back. But
look, you win some, you lose some. Eh?
That's right. That's right. Know someone who might enjoy this? Please feel free to share it with them.
You can find us at FOMO.show.
You can jump on our Telegram at FOMO.show/Telegram.
You can follow us on Twitter where we never tweet at _FOMO_show.
And on YouTube at FOMO.show/YouTube. That's it for us here at the FOMO Show. Thank you so much for joining us.
If you like our show, please do feel free to subscribe in your podcast app of choice or via our YouTube channel.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Joe.
And as always, remember,
no FOMO.
Yeah, man.
Good work.
Holy crap.
That was a mammoth episode. I think that's probably one of our longest episodes.
I know.
Sheesh. It's 10 p.m. on the dot.
I know.
I think we started at 7, didn't we?
Yeah, man. It's not like we've had a lot of downtime either. Like the recording here is 2 hours 20 on my end on the on Reaper. And I reckon we've only got, geez, man, we'd be lucky to have 20 minutes of filler.
Holy.
Oh, well.
All right, chop where you can, brother. Sorry about that. That was, I pressed the space bar and then next thing I knew, it was curtains. Why is my recording stopped? Oh, my computer's frozen. Crash report for audition. Fudge!
I want to do a pass-through, like a KVM pass-through, so I can run Windows with a graphics card through Linux at native performance.
Well, I have a solution for you. Why don't you just install Windows 10 and then you can run Linux natively within Windows?